Never have I seen, in such a short time, so much dramatic change in the natural landscape. It is taking place all around this beautiful island I call home. How can so many be so blind and not see the long-term benefits of conserving nature? Instead, we have cut down trees and mangroves. We have dredged the seafloor, removing seagrass without haste. We even poured concrete on top of corals. We have overfished. We eat endangered species and continue to pollute with sewage and plastic. My hope is that this short film raises awareness about conservation in Roatan, because climate change is real and unsustainable tourism is taking place. And if they're not addressed at the current rate of development, the future of our natural surroundings looks bleak. And I would like to continue to frolic around these warm and awe-inspiring sunsets in harmony with nature, where the sun rays filter through the clouds and through the water, illuminating the horizon, and the radiant colors are brought to life above us and below us. As a nature enthusiast, conservationist, and staunch ocean lover, I set off on a personal project I had been planning for quite some time. And that was to produce a visual tribute honoring some of the most beautiful coastal ecosystems on the planet. With the help of some very talented friends, environmentalists, and colleagues, we embarked on a hunt for those special places spread out across the island of Roatan, in the Bay Islands of Honduras, where we got to experience some magical moments, immersed deep within this peaceful but fragile underwater world. It was early 2021, and the ocean was flowing with spectacular marine life. We had a series of incredible encounters with otherworldly creatures, and we were able to observe closely their unique and intriguing behaviors. One cannot fail to notice the magnificent grandeur of the coral reef, with its captivating mosaic of brilliant colors and textures, which come to life as the seascape is lit by the penetrating beams of natural light, pouring down, slicing through the blue hues and into the darkest depths of the ocean. So as we planned each trip to each destination, they shared with me why these places mean so much to them and why they should matter to all of us. Perhaps by presenting these unique images, I can motivate you to open your eyes and truly appreciate the natural bounty that surrounds us, not just on this island, but all of the Bay Islands, and to fully digest why it is important for us to protect and conserve these valuable ecosystems. More light needs to be shed on the beauty of this environment. We need to better understand the ecological role each habitat plays in the health of the greater ecosystem, how interconnected they all are, and how the coral reef system relies so heavily on each one of them for its own survival. Unfortunately, like most reefs around the world, we find them in constant peril, and the usual culprit is often poor human behavior, which poses the gravest threat to its existence. The experts say that by the year 2050, all coral reefs will be threatened, and a large percentage of them will be gone. If we want to preserve these natural habitats and continue to reap the benefits they provide, we need to learn about their current status, understand how human development affects them, and what can be done to reduce this footprint. We need to put aside our individual interests and think about the common good of all. But most importantly, we need to accept that there will be long-term impacts and dire consequences for our apathy. The time to act starts now, so we can sustain these essential ecosystems and magnificent reefs, as well as every living creature that dwells in them, not just for our own admiration and enjoyment, but for future generations as well. And so, this is my contribution.
Photography, I think, is one of the most useful tools to learn, to really grow, learn, expand your intellectual horizon. If you think about every work I've done as a photographer, in order to get the best shot, to get a great job, I study what I photograph. Even if an animal underwater, or it's a plant or a person, you want to take time to learn it. You want to study your subject. In that way, you can really capture the real essence of what you're photographing. Today we're going to take picture in the seagrass. This is my favorite time of the day, when the sun is almost about to set and the sunlight in the water became kind of magical. So we're going to set up the camera with a tripod and let's see what we're going to get. Right now I'm working on a project about seagrass, and when I work about something, I basically make it like my favorite thing to shoot, so I'm very interested in it. And most of the people, they just don't care. They think it's a boring thing. Snorkel divers, they just swim over it, they try to reach the coral, or mangroves, which are also pretty. But instead, seagrass is very interesting. It's actually also very beautiful to snorkel and to see underwater. For instance, seagrass is very important for protecting the coastline from erosion, filter the water, just like mangroves works as a nursery for many species. Despite the name, seagrass is not actually grass, but it's an underwater plant. As a terrestrial plant, it has seeds, leaves, flower, and most important thing, that's the entire cycle of photosynthesis, which means that can absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen, which is the basic element for life. So it's very important for the ocean. And scientists prove that some species of seagrass, they are over 30 times more efficient than rainforests to absorb carbon. That's why I think seagrass is very important. And right now it's one of my favorite subjects to photograph.
Prepare for aerial shooting over water. It can be a little counterintuitive to what a lot of photographers and videographers think, in that you want some high sunlight, which is quite harsh and not always the most flattering light for normal shooting, but the light really penetrates the water straight down. And if you have the right filter, like a polarized filter on the camera lens, you can really see through the water. The high sun, midday or early afternoon can really help you get that shot where you can see all the ecosystems in one, from the mangroves through the lagoon, through to the outer reef, and you can see through the water, and it looks, and that makes it look amazing. We're going to the mangroves.
All right.
I was just flying around here at the entrance of the mangroves, just trying to get some shots to capture the ecosystem, hopefully in its entirety. Some various pans and drawbacks, and revealing shots, that kind of thing. Even followed the little mangrove cut.
Now that I was looking into my files, looking at pictures, I noticed the main subject was the fish or the eel or the turtle. And behind it was, this amazing composition of corals, soft corals, hard corals, colorful background. There's this one that we took over at Port Royal in the snorkeling spot between cow and calf. Cow and calf are two coral-like structures that surface out in the Bay of Port Royal. When you enter the water, you would never imagine that there is another complete different world beneath it. It's completely alive, full of life. It's a nursery for small marine life, full of seagrass. I counted approximately 10 to 15 kinds of corals. And so I took my time to look at the difference outside, up on the surface, and then beneath, and just look at the contrast of life. So I was trying to get a picture that could explain what I was feeling at the moment, because it was a feeling, it wasn't a sight. And I could get a split picture of cow and calf, and then the split of the water, and then all the sea life in the bottom with the different types of corals that live beneath it. Es uno de los lugares más espectaculares para snorkel. Es una cosa fuera de este mundo. O sea, bello. Visibility in Roatan is 90% of the time fabulous. Either if you're working with natural light or with strobes, you can always get an amazing shot.
I think people are aware that there are a lot of species and different types of animals and plants and invertebrates, and the whole panoply of life is on the coral reef. It's the most productive ecosystem. The coral reef provides a home for millions of species. One of the least known facts about coral reefs is they're a very tiny percentage of the ocean. 0.1% of the ocean are coral reefs. But those coral reefs provide a home for 1/4 of all marine life. So they're incredibly productive ecosystems, and they're incredibly fragile. All different parts of the ecosystem have to work together to make the coral reef ecosystem stay alive, and it's a delicate balance. And man's activities have put a very hard challenge to the health of coral reefs around the world.
First time we were there, we were just blown away. I think we fell in love with that area. The first moment we saw it, we knew it had to be protected. So we worked very hard to make that happen. So much so that we've named our daughter after Cordelia Banks. I was seeing staghorn coral that basically had died off in the 80s. We didn't really see it around the reefs that we were diving, and this was a huge area of staghorn coral that was in really good shape. And so the first moment I saw it, I fell in love. It's got a high cover of Acropora cervicornis, which is a staghorn coral. It's known to be in really good shape. In fact, it's 70% live coral cover. It's also known to have a shark dive associated with it, and when you have sharks, you know you have a healthy place. But what's not so well known about this place is that there's also a spawning ground for groupers and snappers. And you also have mangroves very close by. And so if you put all of those things together and you have spawning site and you have natural habitat, which is the acropora, they act like a natural home for small juveniles, and you have spawning, you have the acropora, you have the mangroves, you really have a whole ecosystem that if we protect it, can be the hope spot for the rest of the region. Already some studies indicate that Cordelia is spawning, which means that those corals that are putting their eggs into the column of water can travel from Roatan to Belize to Cancun, even around Roatan and the Bay Islands. And so this species, which is critically endangered, does have hope if we protect this area.
So one of my favorite photographs here in Roatan has been of a squid. Pretty cool creatures, lots of interesting things about them. This dive in particular, it wasn't just the shot that was great, it was the dive as well. So we were aiming to dive on Cordelia Banks, which is a really iconic part of the reef here in Roatan. And we were hoping to catch the coral spawning. And that's late at night, so it's a late night dive. We're in at sort of 10, 11 p.m. to try and catch this very small window for coral spawning. And we missed it. But on the way back to the boat, right up near the surface of the water, was this beautiful Caribbean reef squid about this sort of size, and he's trying to blend in with the surface of the water, so he's changing colors. What I didn't realize when I was taking pictures of this squid was I was also capturing all of the plankton in the water. So those little worms, and the coral spawn that had already been released was getting picked up by my flashes. So we have this black water with all these bright speckles in there, and the squid all lit up, and the reflection of the squid in the surface. It was one of those, super lucky shots. I wasn't expecting much to come out because of all the particulate in the water, but it actually looks like a squid floating in space, which was kind of cool.
Well, of course, my favorite subject is Carcharinus perezi, the Caribbean sharks. They are amazing creatures. I mean, they are beautiful. They are one of the most important natural heritage we have. They have been here forever. I mean, for scientists, I think they agree they have been here for 450 million years, 100 million years before the trees. And they survive all 5 mass extinctions. And they are just amazing animals. And I think we have a lot to learn from them. I mean, if you think about what we have ahead of us, the drastic change that we are having in our environment, thanks also to our human activity, I think we're going to be learning how to adapt in the future. And I think maybe we can learn from sharks. I did a job that was published on National Geographic years ago about the lionfish invasion. At the beginning, when the lionfish was just discovered, back then, because it was something new, people really didn't know what to do. Biologists, scientists, even marine parks around the Caribbean, they were trying to feed sharks, groupers, moray eel, barracudas with lionfish, so that eventually the species that is not from here, a predator will start to recognize it as a prey, so they will start to eat it and keep it under control. Scientifically, I don't know if this is right or not. That's not my field. I'm just a photographer. But I captured the moment where sharks were feeding off wounded lionfish, and that was published on National Geographic.
To me, it's really hard to pick my favorite natural ecosystem on the island because we have so many, and growing up at some point or another, like something reminds you of it from your childhood. But if I have to choose today, I would choose mangroves. I think they're very misunderstood. They provide such a wide range of ecosystem services, and people just, they don't see it. Like it's just not clear, it's not apparent. But something so simple, something so beautiful, like gives you so much more than you can imagine.
One of the more interesting shots I've taken here in Roatan with my drone has been after a big storm. I took the drone up and it was super calm, really clear, the air was fresh. I thought, we'll go out and some great shots here. Took the drone up, there was a huge plume out into the ocean of just brown silt coming out of the bay and covering the outer reef. And from above, you could really see it. I guess it was really shocking to see the impact that humans, even on the land, can have on the ocean. You know, so cutting down trees, building improper drainage for rainwater and things, creates these torrents of water out into the ocean, which bring all the silt and sediment, which is really damaging for the reef, which relies on photosynthesis. So if you're blocking the sunlight, then your corals are going to start dying.
They act as nurseries for different fisheries, and also that they protect us from hurricanes. You know, growing up on an island where you constantly are very worried about the hurricane season, well, the mangroves are good for storms. I would say that one of the least known facts about mangroves is that they're carbon sinks. And what that means is that they sequester and they store carbon. And this is important because of climate change. You know, one of the biggest issues is all that carbon that's going into the atmosphere and continuously incrementing the temperature, affecting our coral reefs, affecting the way we live. And so mangroves store all of this. And when we destroy them, it is released back into the atmosphere. And so not only are we affecting the nurseries, the biodiversity of species that exist within this ecosystem. We live on an island. We're one of the hot spots for what climate change will be affecting us, and so we have to be more conscious of that.
I'd like people to know that coral reefs are incredibly beautiful, incredibly productive ecosystems, but they're under incredible stress right now. We have a new disease on this island that's killing the corals that I love. I've seen bleaching on this island the last 2 out of 3 years, really severe bleaching, really damaging to the coral reefs. These reefs are declining before our eyes, and largely due to climate change. So I think people need to realize that the beauty of coral reefs are at risk if we cannot stop emitting so much greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. We have to fix climate change in order to save our coral reefs.
The biggest threat for my favorite subject at the moment, which is seagrass, like everywhere else, like every time there is a threat to the environment, is the human activity. That's it. That's sad to say, but human is the biggest threat to everything that comes to environmental.
The biggest threats to mangroves is deforestation. And this can be because of aquaculture, tourism, urban sprawl, but mostly on the island of Roatan, what we see is tourism. Usually investments come in, and what these big projects want to do is to create a white beach, because that's what they think that all tourists are interested, that they want to come to a white sandy beach. It's an area that there's a mangrove forest. The first thing they try to do is cut it down. And really at the end, they're affecting their own pockets because they're hurting the reef, because it is a nursery for all these different types of fisheries that end up on that reef. And as we know, for a reef to thrive, we need fish. And so if you're killing the nursery, then you're also killing the reef.
What's my favorite dive site? That's sort of easy. There is an incredible site called Cordelia Banks, and it's the greatest remaining stand of staghorn coral in the Caribbean. It's an amazing relic of what the Caribbean used to look like, and we're really proud that Honduras has protected that region, so I would say Cordelia Banks is my favorite site.
So the threats are related to sewage and sanitation. It's important to know that we have to really take important steps to clean our water so this beautiful ecosystem can survive and thrive. Overfishing is another big threat to this area. And bleaching. Bleaching is a threat all around the world. Yes, it is man-made, but sometimes it's indirectly man-made because you don't feel when you're in Roatan you can really do anything about it. But you can do things that are important for the reef. You can support by ensuring that you're not eating fish, a grouper or a snapper in the seasons where they're spawning. There's a responsible seafood guide that you can follow. There are many things that you can do as an individual, and then you also have a voice, so you can influence your collective, and that can make a world of difference as well.
I was working in Florida for the Coral Restoration Foundation, and we came down and built 2 coral nursery projects here on the island. And it just got me thinking that I really love Roatan, and I moved down here a year later to help manage those projects. Favorite part of my job is taking people out to the coral nursery and grabbing some of the coral that we've grown and going out to the reef and teaching them how to plant coral back on the reef, and to see how happy those people are when they're riding back on the boat, feeling of they've learned something, they've done something, they've made a difference, they really feel good about their experience. And in the process, we teach a lot of people, so that's my favorite part, is teaching people and seeing the smile on their face after they planted a coral back on the reef.
We have to see the bigger picture. We have to see past our nose. For development to be beneficial on our island, it has to be sustainable. For that, we have to think about these ecosystems, especially mangroves, and seagrass is another one that gets this bad attention that tourists do not like. We need to look deeper and really see the benefits that they provide and conserve them the best that we can.
If you can appreciate underwater life in some way, if you go on a glass bottom boat, if you go snorkeling, if you go scuba diving, anything that involves just appreciating the underwater treasure that we live on is something that can definitely change your life.
What would you like someone to take away from this interview?
That's a big question. Learn from your life, from your experiences, from people that are around you. Enjoy and love the environment where we live. You know, beauty's around us. Just open your eyes.
And so I did. During the making of the short film, I had the enormous pleasure and great privilege of traveling to some of the most remote corners of Roatan. Admire, enjoy, and capture some of the most stunning coastal scenery imaginable. From snorkeling the shallow coasts to diving the deep blue sea, skimming through the tight mangrove canals, across the endless mounds of seagrass, past the large protruding rocks, and through the maze of endangered living reefs. I gazed at it all, amazed at the gleaming nurseries teeming with juveniles, and the largest shoals swaying in unison across the vastness of the ocean, past the lonesome individuals hiding within the crevices. I saw them all with my own eyes and through my own lens, and in the process, managed to capture and preserve these vital ecosystems for posterity, so that 30 years from now, we can look back and see what these reefs used to look like, and think for a brief moment how we almost, just barely, failed to commit and do what had to be done for them to remain here, still with their magical splendor, sun-splashed, sparkling, surviving, alive.